Campside Media.
Hey, Campside listeners, welcome to Inside the Tent, a series where we go behind the mic of our hit podcasts. I'm Matthew Scher, co-founder here at Campside, and today I'm talking with the veteran journalist Jen Miller about Blood Will Tell, her recent hit podcast. Blood Will Tell explores the lives of two twins, Trung and Anh, who are separately arrested for the same murder. It is, as Jen says in the show, one of the craziest yarns you will ever hear, and it gets more complicated as the podcast moves forward until it turns into this kind of beautiful tapestry of themes of family and loyalty and the secrets we all keep from each other. Honestly, one of my favorite things about Blood Will Tell is the way it unfolds. It doesn't rush, just slowly reveals itself, piece by piece. Before I go on, if you want more behind-the-scenes stuff from our shows, head to joincampside.com to become a free member of the Campside community. That's joincampside.com. All right, on to my conversation with Jen Miller. Jen, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks so much for chatting.
So this project has a really interesting story, which you hint at in the first episode. But will you tell us a little bit about how you stumbled across this story?
Absolutely. So it was February of 2020, and I was reporting a story for the Washington Post magazine, RIP, very sad. and the story was looking at therapeutic Shakespeare programs and how arts in prisons and art programs outside of prisons were helping people who are incarcerated with their rehabilitation. And then once people left prison, how that type of activity could help them reintegrate back into society. So I went to San Quentin Penitentiary in California, Northern California, and I went to see a rehearsal for Othello. And they were rehearsing the final scene of Othello, which is very dramatic. And during that time, I sat down to talk to one of the participants, Trung, who was going to be getting out soon, because I was really interested in how this Shakespeare program, the relationship between him being in this program and him leaving the prison. And I really didn't ask him very much. Just, tell me why you gravitated towards Shakespeare. And then he just started pouring out the most incredible, unbelievable story that I had ever heard in my life. I mean, it's like the kind of story that a journalist, it's like a once in a lifetime story for a journalist. You have two identical twin brothers who are each other's best friends, rely on each other for everything, are often in competition with each other. And they go to a party. Something very bad happens. They're arrested. And then they're both put in a lineup, which, you're not supposed to put two identical twins in a lineup. But I guess listeners can guess what happens.
Yeah, that leaves enough to the imagination. So here's the question. Why not just make a magazine article out of this? A different magazine article out of it?
Well, it was much too complicated of a story to make a singular magazine story. It was really a story that I felt needed to be told expansively and really in a really in-depth and nuanced way. And I think that audio lends itself really well to that, in particular, being able to hear from both of the twins, to hear their voices, to hear their emotion. But, the other thing is that it took years for me to really get to know them and to earn their trust. And I think that a magazine, I think even a lengthy magazine story wouldn't have done it justice.
What was obviously there's immense sensitivities in here. What was the negotiation or discussion like with the twins when you were getting ready to do this podcast, there was a lot that you had to hold in your head. There was a lot of trust on their end, obviously. But what were those conversations like?
We had so many conversations. I've never been through an experience like this as a reporter. And I've been a reporter for over 25 years. I've reported from conflict zones. I have reported on, post-traumatic stress disorder and on, violence in war and like really intense and difficult things. I had never before reported on people who had been actively engaged in criminal activity and who were actually not that far removed from just time-wise, from the time when they were engaged in that kind of criminal activity. And so, the twins, when they were teenagers, they were involved in street gangs in San Jose. They were involved in, there's a whole ecosystem of Southeast Asian organized crime. They had gotten really involved in that. And it was scary. I mean, they, part of the show, they have there's like a death threat hanging over their heads for a good part of the show. So, and that it's real, right? And so they were really afraid. And I was terrified that I would do something, that might get them hurt. And yet they really wanted to tell this story. So it was a balance of trying to figure out how to tell it responsibly in a way that they felt comfortable and safe, but, didn't compromise the integrity of the narrative and trying to get at the truth of what happened.
Had they, I should know this, had they talked to the press before, Jen?
No, not at all. Not at all. After their arrest, like within maybe a couple weeks of their arrest, like the arrests were reported. And it was so interesting because, and I mean, this might give a little bit away, but what had happened was that, so the arrests were reported. People were obsessed with the fact that, two identical twins put in a lineup, or two identical twins arrested for this crime. And then one of them was charged. And then a week later, the media reports that the charges have been switched. But nobody knows why the charges have been switched. Just that, oh, phew, it looks like we had the wrong one, but now we have the right one. Spoiler, they didn't. So the twins had never given an interview publicly. And the media accounts were really vague and general. So there was no, and they never went any further than, okay, the charges have been switched. And that was it. Actually, the bulk of the story happens kind of after that point. So yeah, I mean, somehow, I think because I just kept showing up and I kept really promising them and like faithfully promising them that I wasn't going to do anything without their buy-in.
I'm always curious why people say yes to being interviewed, because I feel like like if a loved one of mine ever gets approached by a reporter, I would tell them to run. But why do you think they said yes to you?
I mean, I'm like struggling to answer that question. I mean, I know kind of like big picture why. Okay, Trung, who was the one the twin that I first met in prison. So Trung said yes because, every story that you hear is a story about the criminal justice system going awry. And like, there's plenty of that in Blood Will Tell. But this is actually one of the few criminal justice stories that I've encountered where actually the system actually ended up doing what it was supposed, like the kind of ideal of what the system is supposed to do in terms of like leading people through this rehabilitative experience, giving them the opportunity to remake themselves, remake their lives, to make amends, to try to make amends for the crimes they've committed. Trung was really fortunate in that California was introducing all these reforms, and he was really able to take advantage of that and to really change his life And some of the programs that he did in prison, including the Shakespeare program, including this other program that trained him to be a substance abuse counselor for fellow inmates, he got out and now he's working to be a therapist. Like, he got his master's in social work and he's about to be one of the few licensed therapists with a criminal record in California. He really wanted to share that story. He really wanted people to be able to see that, you're not the worst thing you've ever done. You have to live with the worst thing you've ever done. You have to reckon with it every day, as he does. But that if you can figure out a way to integrate that pain and trauma and like those terrible things that you've done, if you can figure out a way to integrate that into your life moving forward and to do something to try to give back, like, that's a story that we don't often hear. And he really wanted that story out there. What's so interesting is that Anh, I think, puts a lot of trust in Trung, which is given the backstory here is kind of ironic. So it was always kind of like, if Trung feels okay with it, then I feel okay with it too. And that's, I think, why Anh went along with it. And then I think, I don't know, like maybe in some ways it was cathartic for them to be able to talk. I spent a lot of time talking to them individually. Anh, over time was able to say stuff to me that it was years before he was able to say it to Trung outright. And we have that in the show, which is so amazing. The last episode of the show really takes us into finally they confront each other. But yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I would tell my family members never to talk to a reporter.
Well, I think you're burying the part that's like they trusted you because you're a trustworthy person.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt.
And also, it came out, what you produced was what you said you were going to produce.
Yes,
so their trust in you was proven correct.
Yes. They were, yes. I mean, my approach toward journalism has really evolved over the last 25 years and like certainly over the last, 10 years. I really have come to believe, and we're not talking about like a story for the New York Times, like the rules are a little different, but with a long form story like this for audio, or like I write books, like I think that it should be more of a collaborative experience, that like there's always this idea that the reporter has to put up this hard and fast wall between them and their sources. And I actually don't think that's the right way to go about it, because this is their story and this is their lives. And if they are going to trust me with being the vehicle to convey that and like the vulnerability of that to the world, like I owe them a lot. Like I owe them honesty, that like when I say like I am going to make sure that you feel comfortable with this. And I think a lot of reporters might balk at that. But I also think I lucked out in the sense of the thing about the twins is that they understood the mission here, which was not to make them look good. The mission was for them to be as honest as they could be without putting themselves in physical danger. And so they were open to me sharing all of the things about their lives that were bad and dirty and morally compromising, because it got to a larger truth. So it kind of went both ways, I guess.
That's a really good way of putting it. Is there a different reward to finishing a podcast versus a book? Like, did you feel differently when you held your published book versus listening to a completed podcast?
Okay. I mean, this gets into like the personal relationship that I have with finishing a project. I have published, I think, 5 books. And every single time I publish a book, I basically have like a mental and emotional breakdown, like for real. Every time my husband is like, "Are you sure you want to do this again?" Because you work so hard and then you put this thing out and then like nothing happens. Right. This was a completely different experience, in part because like I was able to kind of insulate myself with this idea of like, well, it's not my medium. So, and it felt like, okay, there's really nothing that I can do aside from throwing my own money at the problem, which I did, listener, by the way, a lot of it, like a third of my advance, I paid to an independent publicist, shout out to Maggie Taylor, to actually get this show attention. And she killed it. Like, we're being featured on Apple's new series right now. I don't know how the show is doing, but like, I guess the point that I'm saying is that I felt like there was little that I could do. And so as opposed to with a book, you somehow feel like there's always more that you can do. And this was like, I just at a certain point have to just hand it over. And because the product, even though it took as long, is so much is more easily digestible, like it is clear to me that, scores more people, like thousands of more people have listened to this show, I am sure, than have read all 5 of my books combined within a period of like 6 weeks. And that blows my mind. Like, that is so exciting to me. Like, finally, something that I made, like, people are actually like engaging with it in some way. And that just makes me so happy. And also, I feel like it's like blood from a stone. Like, I like, can I curse? I just fucking made this thing happen. Like, this was not going to happen, and I fucking made it happen. And I'm so fucking proud of myself for doing it, because it took 6 years. And I like don't often like own my success in that way. I'm like really trying to feel it because I really need to.
Good. You are feeling it. But yeah, I have the same problem. It's hard to, especially in this field, it's hard to allow yourself to be happy about anything. It's like
so true.
I don't know. But you're right. I mean, millions more people. Like it's in the millions, right?
Millions? It's really in the millions?
Oh, for sure. It's in the millions by now. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like
millions.
But do you ever think about why that is? Like why it is so interesting, because it's not labeled journalism. It's like people don't feel like it's like a broccoli that they have to eat, like picking up the New York Times. It's like podcasts have been positioned as entertainment, even when they're teaching you something, and they exist independently of partisan politics. So people watch them, people listen to them. It's I don't know. That's my working theory. I don't know for sure, but I think that's part of it.
I mean, I definitely think there's something to that if it feels like broccoli, but I actually don't entirely like, because the gold standard for most nonfiction books that are not like a history of George Washington, whatever, like it's got to read like a novel. Mm-hmm. Like it has to be the book version of a docudrama, of an audio drama. Like that is, and so, and people do read those books. But I think like and I don't know like what the podcasts, if you go to like, if we go now and look on Apple, like the top 50 podcasts, like how many of them are narrative series like this anymore? Like now there's maybe fewer because everyone just wants to hear celebrities talk. But I feel like it doesn't matter the medium. Like if you make it entertaining, people are going to consume it. But maybe because like everybody has Apple or Spotify on their phone, it's just more readily accessible.
I think that's it. I'm going to correct my first point. It's not that. It's like that it's a different audience. It's like the audience that reads the New York Times and buys a serious nonfiction book. Yes, some of them listen to podcasts, but most who listen to podcasts are people who wouldn't otherwise consume those other kinds of media. I think. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing.
Okay. I mean, I'm re-listening to it. I was actually surprised that like the opening of the show, there's like this longish meditation on Shakespeare. And I actually was surprised that that's how we started. Because like if people are sticking, I don't think it's boring. I think it's like, personally, I think it's riveting. But like if people are like making it through that cold open, then I give listeners a lot of credit because we could have, that it's a little, I don't want to say it's dense because I don't want to scare people away, but it's not like we start with the most dramatic scene. Like we start with something that's a little more cerebral, I guess. And people, I have made it through and continue on. So
yeah, maybe we freak ourselves out about the bar to entry and we worry about it so much, or we base it off emails that we get or one comment, and most people are perfectly fine with it. I don't know. I want to ask you a last question, which has to do with how we started. What do the twins think after listening to it? I know this was something you thought you were worried about and it was on your mind a lot. What were those conversations like after they listened?
They felt really good about it. And so I felt really validated. They specifically expressed to me that that they felt like they were trying to listen to it to the extent that they could listen to it objectively, but that they felt like, okay, we have a propulsive narrative. We have the nuance of our circumstances and the events, in our relationship. And we have shrouded the things that could really get us hurt. And we don't feel like the things that we shrouded, interfered with it feeling like a really good story. That was really their takeaway. And that's what I was going for. So I feel great based on that.
You should feel great.
Yeah.
I mean, what's so interesting is I journalists would be like a hardcore investigative journalist would be like, well, if you didn't piss someone off, you're not doing your job. But this is not that kind of story. This is trying to honorably and faithfully tell a real story in a complicated way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Trung's victim's family is very upset. I haven't actually heard. I haven't heard from them. I haven't heard from anybody. I mean, I hear from my friends. I haven't gotten any emails or anything. But I can assume that they are very upset because they, people aren't always ready or want to hear. Trung took this guy's life, and it is, I think, understandably incredibly difficult to see his story centered and to see him kind of held up ultimately as someone who's trying to do better, and to the show gives him the space to go on that journey to try to do better. And I would bet that based on my previous conversations with people close to his victim, that not everybody is happy that a product exists that gives him that space.
Jen, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again to Jen Miller and the whole Blood Will Tell team. And thanks to you for listening to Inside the Tent. Don't forget to head over to joincampside.com to become a free member of the Campside community. That's joincampside.com.